Well, hey everyone, we are back with our next video in our video viewer series, and we are here with Penny. She is down in Arkansas, and Penny is by trade a nurse, worked in the geriatric field, and so I think some of her questions are going to be really good because our areas tie together quite well. But what is your first question for me?
Okay, my first question is, my husband was an organ donor.
Okay.
And when I went to make his arrangements after his death, they had told me that it would cost a lot more to make him suitable for viewing. They removed his corneas, his liver, and long bones.
Okay.
Why would that be?
So a lot of funeral homes will have, and it's legal to have, if it's on your general price list, a embalming restoration charge. So typically it'll be for like an autopsy or an organ tissue donation where more time is needed for putting the person back together essentially from how they're received. However, it's not more extensive than if it was a major accident, something like that, but it definitely takes more time to preserve tissue and to do some restoration. Typically, it's kind of a set fee of $150 or something like that, but it's not usually exorbitant, like where we're talking like $1,000 more or anything like that. If that's the case, then that's really trying to screw somebody on, to put it in short terms. So what were they wanting to charge you?
$1,000. And it was only going to be immediate family, and then he was going for a cremation, and I refused it. But I was like, why so much more?
So
I understood a little.
yeah, so I mean, with the corneas, sometimes they just take um, like the top part of the eyeball. Sometimes they'll take out the full eyeball. They may, and that's more typical what we find. It just takes a little bit longer to dry the orbit out, to pack it, put an eye cap, and close. With the liver, there may have been an incision that needed to be sutured. They may have had to do, an extra injection point. The long bones definitely are a lot more work because you have to suture the whole leg up. It doesn't take more than an hour. So if they think that they need to be paid over $500 an hour more to do these type of things, they're crazy. But I will tell you that there are embalmers who really dislike working on individuals who are organ donors, and more specifically tissue donors, because of the work, especially now, tissue depth, skin that's taken, because the person's whole back, basically it's right down to muscle. There's holes into the cavity where there's no muscle. Like, you can't close that up. You're essentially treating the tissue, placing the person in plastics, the plastic undergarments for the viewing. But there's nothing about that is 10 hours worth of additional work or anything of that nature. So I feel like that fee is almost being charged because they're trying to dissuade you from wanting to do that. And I think that's really crappy, because that's your loved one and they're putting a price on you getting to view them again that's exponentially more than it needs to be. And that makes me mad.
I thought that was intimidating too.
So what did you end up doing?
You already answered the second part to that one, and that was whether they removed just the corneas or the entire eyeball. And I'm not sure which. The second one is a totally different topic. I had a family member that passed away in a very hot apartment in the middle of summer in a recliner. He was found 7 days later.
Okay.
According to our coroner, he was half mummified, half horribly decomposed. Why would it be half and half? Or basically, you know.
I would, so this is full guessing. I'm going to possibly guess that there was air conditioning on high in the room, and that no air conditioning.
No, the window was open.
Okay.
No air conditioning.
Blankets on them.
Possibly.
See, that's what I would guess if they were in a chair, that they had blankets over their lap. So from like waist down was blankets, which insulates and is going to have a lot of heat and moisture under that little pocket. And then above was maybe exposed to the air. So you're going to have two very different climates between top and bottom. That would be my number one guess. Or maybe shirt off on the top and had pants on the bottom. For different exposure levels would be my guesses, but that would be the only reason. Like the body would have to be exposed in different ways for that to happen, or have a heating pad. That also sometimes people, you know, a heating pad feels good on their back, that maybe they had a heating pad on their back, on their lower back. And so the lower area decomposed much more quickly than the, you know, upper part, or in different, you know, in different ways. But that would, the body would have to be in different kind of atmospheres essentially to decompose differently for the most part. Would be my big guess on it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Lots of sense. Number 3 is, where do you see the future of your job as a funeral director and embalmer in the future, with the different restrictions now for like COVID-19 that are much stricter than they were, the water burial and cremation? Do you see it more as an advisory role and less hands-on?
I think down the road, you know, funeral directing used to be, you come in, we're going to have you in, we're going to have a service, we're going to have a burial. All you need to do is fill in the blanks. Give me the information. Let's write an obituary, pick up the casket vault, which folder, and here we go. It was a little more of an order taking. Now it's an event planning. It's an option giving, where we really need to know what is available, not just in our state, because here in Michigan, I can still offer water cremation by taking somebody down to Illinois for it. So it's me knowing what things are, what they might cost, what's available. So when someone comes in and says, I want that body pod that they show me on the internet, where can we buy that, because I want to do it, in what cemetery? I need to know enough about my business that I say, that's not an option that's actually available. It was a concept product. Let's talk about maybe a natural burial or something that we can facilitate for you, and knowing what there is to offer. So I think it's more like funeral directors have to constantly be educating themselves and staying up to date with what's going on, because it is a fast-paced industry right now where new things are coming along, because consumers are demanding new and unique and you know, cutting edge things, where before we just do what is always there. But now people are wanting something different. We've always, you know, the baby boomer generation, which is where we're really in the swing of taking care of now, is that I want it my way and I want it unique. And so that is where the business is right now, is coming up with new memorabilia items, or, you know, personalization products, or different kinds of caskets, because people want to do this and that to them, or urns, or, you know, putting people in reefs and all these things that are asking for more and more. And I think some of that is with media and how easily information can be spread now to consumers by blasting it out on Facebook or by one person selecting it and it going out into, you know, the news and such. And so I think that is so much different than it used to be, that one new concept can blow up very, very quickly, whether it's like with the burial pod, whether it's something that's real or not, people can still be exposed to that idea very quickly. And so we really need to know what's available and what we can get and how we can facilitate it more so than we used to. It's up to the funeral director how hands-on with it we can be or not. There's a lot of funeral directors who don't like change. They don't want to offer new things. They can say, all right, we'll do the cremation and you can go figure it out. Whereas our role needs to be being part of that process with the family, because we are the, you know, death care providers, that we need to help that family through all of it. And it's our own fault if we're cutting ourselves out of the process because we're being stubborn or whatever our reasoning for not wanting to partake. We almost get too much of an ego in front of us sometimes, where we say, well, they don't want a traditional service, then they can just, you know, kind of do it themselves. And so we need to embrace more of that relationship we can every family, every disposition choice. And I think that's where it's going to be changing, is we're going to get involved in families planning everything that we're doing with them. And so it's going to be not so cookie cutter. And it's not as cookie cutter right now, but right now a lot of funeral directors are not getting on board with that. And so families are doing some more themselves. And so I think it'll rotate a little bit back more, where we're working with the family to help plan those things and get involved and find middle ground more, because that's what needs to happen within the industry, or else we're gonna, you know, it's gonna go really sideways from what it is right now. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I have a bonus question.
Okay.
The bonus question is actually, what as healthcare workers can we do with the deceased to make your job easier, like removing tubes or not removing tubes? Or
No, it's a great question. I think Chris, who is the EMT, I think he asked along the lines of the same question, and I think it's great. You know, it's relationships, all these relationships where we bridge to different, you know, vocations with pastors and with nursing and all these different areas, that how can we all work better together? And we should all be asking across the board, back and forth, like, what can we do when we come into your facility, and what can you do to help us? I think positioning the deceased is very helpful. Just, you know, if the arm is like off to the side or some crazy position and they're laying that way for a couple hours, we come in and then try and get them on a cot, and we have an arm that's off to the side, because sometimes arms fall off to the side of a bed or off to the side of something, but it's going to be stuck there in rigor if we come, you know, several hours after or something. So trying to get arms up, trying to get heads maybe up a little bit so they're not laying in pools of blood if the person's purging. You know, we'll often get somebody and they've got blood and purge and things all over their head, and sometimes it can stain because it's very acid based if it's purged from the stomach, and that can do some damage if it's there for a while, which you can't really control too much if they're put in a bag, like a body bag, and taken to the morgue. But some of that, you know, you can try until they're in that bag or whatnot. IVs being left in, we don't mind, because it keeps the circulatory system closed with the IV in. Otherwise it starts draining. I like if the catheter is taken out, but I understand it may leak some. But emptying the catheter, to me, I don't want old urine. End of story. Keep the urine at the hospital or at the care facility. I don't want to bring home a big old bag of urine back to the funeral home. So at least empty the urine bag, empty a colostomy bag, empty, you know, out the fecal and the urine and stuff. But otherwise, you know, pulling, if there is an intubation tube, pulling that out. I know that was one big thing Chris and I talked about, because otherwise you get this very stretched mouth if they're that way for a while, or, you know, the family, that's how they see the person for the last time sometime, is with this big old thing coming out of them. So some of that is nice to remove, which is more kind of at home, life-saving at the end type things. So, yeah.
That was a good answer. It's some things I hadn't thought about.
Yeah, so those are just kind of off the cuff thinking things. I'm sure that if I prepared, I'd have much more concise answers. Sometimes I feel like I ramble because I'm like thinking of things off the top of my head. But I think one of the best things about these is I have not prepared anything. It's kind of, I really have no idea what you guys are throwing.
Mhm.
So it's kind of fun to see what does
Yeah.
the top of my mind. Because those are sometimes the most important, maybe, is what comes to mind first. So.
Right. All the long-term care facilities that I've worked at, it's an automatic. They get bathed, they get positioned. I guess the biggest part of that question was the tubes, the IVs, and I was pretty sure that's what you were going to say because of leakage, and
Yeah.
then you know exactly where things were to seal if you need to.
Yeah.
I guess that was probably the part that I was most uncertain about. Never had anybody purge on me yet. I'm hoping never to.
Yeah.
Never.
Usually that comes later.
But other, yeah, well, yeah, you can have that part. I will let you keep that.
Thanks.
We do enough of the cleanup before it becomes purge. Okay, I think you got it.
Thank you so much, Penny. I appreciate it. Cool. Well,
I appreciate you asking.
oh, of course. Well, thanks, guys, for joining us in Arkansas, and check us on our next video to see what state we're going to next. Bye, guys.
Bye.